Your daughter near that guy? Would you let your daughter date somebody like Andrew Tate? If your daughter was 18 and Andrew Tate came up to her and when he's 40 years old, would you let your daughter date that guy? You wouldn't.
All right. What's going on, everybody? Hey, it's Lysander, God Amongst Men. Very apt name, by the way, for what we're going to be discussing today. I want to discuss the debate between Sneako versus Destiny, titled, I Want My Daughter to Be Part of Andrew Tate's Harem. Let's go. So let's start off first. I mean, this kicks off pretty quickly with Destiny pretty much pressing Sneako on something rather imperative, rather important. It's kind of a gotcha. I'm not going to lie. A little bit of a gotcha, but here's my take on it. This is what I would have probably said.
How do you have God on your stream while you're talking about so many different women? How is that godlike? How do you expect, let's say that you do that. Let's say somebody gets your lifestyle, okay? And you get your 20 women up to your 25, 26, 27 years old. How are you just going to flip that off and then go and find one woman?
So essentially what this comes down to is Sneako saying, Destiny saying, you know, how's this godlike? It's godlike to understand, and you're able to understand God through empirical evidence. And that's essentially what the red pill is. Believe it or not. Really, sounds crazy, sounds cult-like in a way, right? But the reality is, if you can understand God rationally by looking at universal laws, by looking at physics, by understanding evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology, right? This is how you really could look and understand God. And if God has set this stuff up as far as this hierarchy is concerned, as far as these means are concerned, by how men desire to become this way and women desire to be with this type of man, you can understand now that it's a construct of God. So for Destiny to get all upset and say, how can you mention God and believe this style and believe this way? Well, I mean, we could even go so far as to say and understand, hey, if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, which I'm not, but you can sit there and you can understand that in the Old Testament that there was many men with many different wives, right? Islam, which I believe is a pretty base religion, to be honest with you. It's not perfect, but in my opinion, it's probably the closest to how society should be structured in today's modern time. You understand that men are able to be polygamous, right? And that they're able to have numerous wives. But there's rule sets, right? There's rule sets. There's things and ways by which you need to abide by this. So I think really what it comes down to, and this is going to disappoint a lot of people, but I think that either Christianity, one, is the culprit for people or for men becoming so feminized, right? I really do believe that. Or two, people aren't really believers, aren't really true Christians anymore, and like to use this kind of feminized version of Christianity to make it seem as though if you're not monogamous and if you're not constantly caring about the woman's pleasure, right? If you're not putting her pleasure first, which is essentially what the blue pill is, then you're some kind of evil, bad guy. Now, the next thing that he kind of talks about is, so Destiny, what he talks about is, how can you sit here and, from your youth to an older age, run through all these girls and then expect to be good relationship material? It's very simple. Men need experience. Men start off in an infant phase in a way when it comes to relationships by not understanding the game and believing in women from an idealistic perspective. What men do is they look at women, and this is another big issue that's wrong with Western culture today, with our culture here in the United States, and with Christianity, is that all of these institutions assume that women have no moral authority, over themselves, right? So any moral agency, nor do they believe that women are capable of any type of evil. That's why you're always going to hear these tradcons and these boomers and all these other people say and give the excuse that men need to step up more. Because in a way, what this type of religion and what this type of mindset teaches people is that it's always men's fault, which is essentially what a feminist worldview is, right? That's being trapped in the matrix. I don't know if you guys have heard my theory before on all this other stuff, but the matrix, which the term matrix stands for mother womb feminine, people that are trapped in this matrix see the world from a feminine worldview. And that's what the matrix is trying to do to people, is make everyone, male, female, see the world from this feminine worldview and put feminine emotions, priorities, and pleasures as the primary focus of how people need to think, of consciousness. And that's what I stand up against. I don't believe in that whatsoever. So this is essentially what this guy Destiny is doing, is he's using a blue pill, matrix, slave mind concept of saying you're bad by bringing up God and saying XYZ. You're also bad by believing that men should, in their youth and up to their maturation, let's just say, should behave in this lifestyle of being with many women. The reality is, like I said, men need to get pushed out of that mindset and that behavior of believing of women being pure and innocent, of believing in women being and holding no moral agency, and understand the real behavior of women. Women play the game way better than we do. Women understand how to manipulate men with tears, with sex from very, very early ages. I'm not going to go into what ages I believe, really, but they know this. And men, if they don't get hurt enough by women, if they don't start seeing the pattern, will continuously move through life deferring their pleasure and their authority over to women. And that's a very, very bad, obviously we can see what's going on in today's world, that's very bad. The next thing that he brings up is that
that's not true.
You think that you can go from having 20 women through your 20s, and then at 26, 27, you're going to find like a woman that is spiritual, that is looking for the same things in life that you are going to claim?
20 spiritual women.
What does that mean?
The next thing he specifically talks about too is this: the type of women that you're going to want to bring in. So let's say you are able to accumulate 20 women. What type of substance are these women going to have? Are they going to be spiritual? My whole thing is this: I actually truly do believe that women that fall within their feminine and defer to a strong masculine figure are far more spiritual of women than what we consider spiritual in today's sense, right? So a woman that understands the order, essentially, this is biblical, but this is in every single religion from Islam, the Buddha talked about it, Christianity talked about it when it was in its heyday. I think even the Siddhartha or whatever, they talk about this, how women are not to be in any forms of leadership, and they're not to be in any type of spiritual sense where they're in a dominion over man. And the Bible, I think, actually puts it in the best context, to be honest with you, where it says the hierarchy of how spirituality works is from God to man to woman. And that the man is in charge of the spiritual building blocks within his family, right? Or even within a society. So women that give in to their femininity and defer themselves over to a higher value man are actually far more spiritual than the spiritualist types of women that we're seeing today. I mean, easy enough, easy said.
If you go into a church and you start talking to women in their late 20s and you say, what kind of a man are you looking for? They're not going to say, I want a man who could have fucked and gotten 100 bitches pregnant. That's what Destiny fails to recognize is that those women are in that church because they got ran through by that guy, and that guy never gave them commitment. So they're going to say that straight to somebody's face, any man that's going to listen, because they're looking for pity, right? They're looking for acceptance. And honestly, at that point in time too, they are looking for the beta bucks type of guy who's going to come in and save them. But the reality is that woman's always going to know that, well, first off, she's been alpha widowed, right? She's never going to love and respect that man, the new man, right? The beta provider, the churchgoer, essentially. She's never going to respect that man to the level that she respected the alpha guy that ran through her and told her to kick rocks. Next thing is this. Actually, she is looking for that guy. She just realizes at this point in time that her hand, her poker hand, and then her chip count is pretty much low, right? Like, so she's risking, she's running the gambit now. She knows, I am not able to compete with my youthful self any longer. I'm not able to compete with the youthful women on the market. I would prefer to be with this man over there had he committed to me, but she's not able to get that guy. Now, if that same guy or that same type of guy came back around and offered commitment, she'd kick the beta bucks guy, the churchgoer, to
she'd kick him to the curb, plain and simple. So she does want that guy, but she's going to deliver the news in a way that makes her seem it's always plausible deniability with women. She's never going to tell the fucking truth about that stuff.
Let's look at conservatives, okay? Do you think if you had a daughter and a guy like you came up to that daughter, would you let your daughter date that guy?
My answer to this is yes. Okay, just going to the question of like if a guy like me, if I'm older and I have a daughter, and a guy like me, my age, my stature, my experiences in life, my charisma, the way I hold myself, my values, if a guy like me came up to a guy like that and said, I'm taking your daughter, essentially, like I'm marrying your daughter and we're gonna have children, I would be like, bravo. Absolutely fucking bravo. Now, I get it. Okay, Sneeko, 23 years old. I hate to say this. 23 years old, the way he looks and all this other stuff, probably I'd have my own opinion, but if he was older and had a higher, more higher value, if he was a higher value, type of individual, I'd have no concern. Now, moving forward though, I don't think, I don't know how much I really truly believe in choice. I know that sounds fucking crazy, but I don't know. I don't believe in the dating market any longer. I think that we need to be doing arranged marriages anyway. So, that's my take on this whole thing.
Your daughter near that guy, would you let your daughter date somebody like Andrew Tate? If your daughter was 18 and Andrew Tate came up to her when he's 40 years old, would you let your daughter date that guy?
Absolutely. Younger women are more attracted to older males, especially older males that have proven themselves within society, ability to achieve social status and some level of financial independence. My belief system is this, number one, that fathers, moving forward, that people should be put in arranged marriages. I'm not going to exactly tell you how that should happen. I highlight it in my new book. And that once the marriage between the husband and the daughter, or the husband and the woman, the husband and the daughter happen, that the father is, I don't want to say excommunicated, but the father passes on the torch officially and plays almost no role. And if the daughter ever does call back home and starts to complain about the husband or whatever, then the father has to be like, hey, listen, that's your husband. You defer to your husband. He is the king of the domicile, essentially. You will listen to him. I have no say in your relationship, right? Plain and simple. So that's really what I truly believe in that.
So your estimation, Sneeko, is not that everyone can be rich at the same time. It's that if someone tries, they can do it.
Anybody can be rich.
Okay,
yes, that's a very simple statement. That's true.
Fair. But you also recognize that's only for a minority of people that can be rich. It's not everyone that can be rich at the same time, correct?
Yeah, anybody can be rich.
Okay, perfect. So my question is, if you're doing this on these platforms and you're trying to spread the truth to as many people as possible, but you also acknowledge that not everyone who follows your advice can be rich at the same time, what do you say to the rest of the people who won't be able to have access to those resources?
That's tough.
That's tough. Okay, so for the vast majority of your audience, that's tough. But for the ones who worked hard enough and made it, well, they're the only ones who kind of get to be content and be men in that sense.
Yeah,
true sense.
Yeah, this is a great point too. So Abba, it's Abba. Abba comes into the chat. I think he was a moderator for this, and he pretty much essentially says, and this is what it comes down to. One of the biggest core reasons to understand, and one of the best ways to really understand God is to look at natural law. Understanding natural law, you'll understand that there's a hierarchy in everything. There's equal and opposite reactions for everything. Everything is a power struggle in a way, but there is a good way by which all of us can really live within a harmonious means, right? And I think that's by having a low class, a middle class, and then a high class, right? Going off on a tangent here, but really it ties into the same thing of understanding that, especially with the Pareto principle, which is one of the core defining deals when understanding God as well, right? How we're designed, right? We're designed for evolution. We're designed in these certain ways of having these certain sexual strategies. We're also designed as a large group to fall within certain parameters, and within those parameters you have the Pareto principle. Knowing that, and here's the thing, even though I'm a hater on monogamy, I think that's just because of who I am and the type of individual I am, right? How I fall within the hierarchical structure. You gotta you gotta understand that, yeah, this isn't for everyone. And 50% of people out there, 50% of men, maybe even greater percentage of men really do want to be monogamous, and I have no issue with that whatsoever. If you want to be monogamous to one woman, awesome. But also within a society, we should have the ability for men who are high achievers, of high regard, of high genetics, of high social status, the ability to procure more than one woman, right? And I think everyone, going back to my model of what I talked about, the low, middle, and upper classes, that's the beauty of kind of our capitalistic way, even though our economy and economics have been skewed by Federal Reserve banking structures and crony capitalism and all that other stuff. In a true capitalistic sense, you would have a meritocracy is really what it comes down to. And you have the ability to rise and fall up that hierarchy as you choose, right? Because everything, all of our actions, all of our consequences come from our actions. So their point is like, okay, you sit here and you want to paint this structure, but the reality is, just like what we're seeing today, where the top 10% of men in the global population are really the ones that are accumulating more women and more sex than a large majority of men. It's no different than what's happening right now, but we're not doing it in the shadows anymore, and we're creating a structure by which it's out in the open and where it's acceptable. And it's also one of those things where I believe it's meritocratic. So what you're doing is, back to exactly what I said at the beginning of this whole thing, how do you know God? Here through these structures. What is the next stage of evolution? I think it's men moving into a state of godlike stature, right? Modeling ourselves after what we consider ourselves, our highest version of ourselves, to be godlike. And how do you motivate men to become that way? Well, what's our biggest motivator? Well, our biggest motivator is pussy, right? Having access to virginic, youthful women, and then spreading our seed as much as possible and creating a legacy. That's how you motivate men in this direction. And I see no issue with that, right? I think that's how it should be. So we have to create this model this way moving forward. So Sneako's absolutely right. Now the big downfall is it's not fair. It's not fair. But at the same time, how many billionaires are there? How many millionaires are there, right? And then how many people fall below the $50,000 annual income, right? It's like the numbers are going to pan out to exactly the same way. But you have a choice. You have a choice as to where you want to stay within that station and whether or not you want to play the game further and move up that hierarchical structure with the ability to possibly fall down that hierarchical structure. So I see no issue with this stuff. I think, moving forward with everything as far as the mindset of stuff, as far as the red pill, blah, 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 blah. I hate using that terminology, but understanding moving forward with men being able to be with more than one woman and how relationships should be structured in the future, I think this is it. I think that's it. So, hey, with that said, this is my first React video. Very happy to do it. Rock and roll, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. Obviously, what I would love for you guys to do is share this as much as possible. Donate as well. I got a little Venmo link down there, or a PayPal link. Please send some shekels my way. That'd be amazing. And like the video and leave me some comments. I'll see you guys. Adios.